With one of the fastest growing economies in the world, there's a lot driving China's growth, including construction.
That's right. Development in China's cities isn't just causing an economic boom, it's also a symbol of something much greater. KEZI 9 News anchor Holly Menino has the story from China.
Beijing is China's political center. Shanghai is the country's financial hub. It's home to some amazing buildings and world-renowned developments. From skyscrapers to high-rise condos to elevated freeways, Shanghai boasts the kind of cutting-edge development you might not expect in a city well over 1,000 years old.
Shanghai was designated to be more or less the New York, the Manhattan, the Wall Street of China, and it was going to be built up as such, and indeed it has been.
Dan Buck lived in Shanghai for 2 years, studying the city's industrial development. He says Shanghai didn't always look like this. In the aftermath of the communist takeover in 1949, the city's influence as a trading hub declined. The 50s, 60s, and 70s brought industrial growth, and a quarter of the land here was taken up by dirty, smoke-belching factories. Across the river, there wasn't much, but in the 1990s, that changed with a new initiative to invest and rebuild. The city's most famous waterfront district, called the Bund, was given a facelift.
One of the most important drivers of growth in the Chinese economy in this decade has been construction in cities.
What you're looking at is the Pudong Economic Development Zone, a rising wall of buildings some 80 stories high, built in the last 20 years.
Their growth pattern is obviously dramatic.
The skyline looked like you were standing in New York City.
As the city urbanized, planners saw an obvious need for more housing, especially for the growing working class.
There were no true residential middle-class housing. Everything was condos as far as you could see, and as far as we drove, high-rise condos, condo after condo, which was sort of like a concrete jungle.
China's communist leaders realized that Shanghai's growth could be a shining example of the country's success and a symbol that China had earned a place among the world's economic powers. As the city's economy matured, it developed a core set of industries.
One of the most important industries they developed was the automobile industry.
Buck says the idea was to make Shanghai the Detroit of China, putting the largest auto manufacturers in one area. And that meant more buildings, more jobs, and increased spending. A cycle that shows how China feeds its own economy, and one that the U.S. can certainly learn from.
For our people in Oregon and in the Northwest, every time we learn more about a significant economy and can pass that through to our borrowers and our clients, that's of help.
Britt Jefferson is a business development officer with Wells Fargo. He says Wells Fargo has a significant presence in China's financial center, with a staff of 70 working in Shanghai and 6 employees in Beijing.
We've applied to do local currency lending, which is the yuan. So we've got a stake in China, have a strong position there, and they're going to grow that.
A message of cooperation, and maybe even a lesson in how the U.S. can boost its own economy.
We want to make sure that they understand that America is a good place to invest as well, and hopefully they will.
China's exponential growth has some in the U.S. worried that we'll fall behind, but it's important to remember that the global economy isn't a fixed pie. It's constantly expanding, so there's room for our economy to grow right along with those of other countries.
With both of our economies growing in tandem and very much in relationship with each other, that this can be the future can be a win-win for both sides rather than a win-lose.
Shanghai is one of China's most populated cities, home to 23 million people. It's also the country's wealthiest city. In Shanghai, Holly Menino, KEZI 9 News.
And be sure to tune in to KEZI 9 News this Sunday at 6:30 for our half-hour special on the Eugene-China connection. Along with its determination to be the world's largest economy, China is also one of the world's major polluters. And tomorrow, we'll take a look at how the country is trying to be more environmentally friendly.